everyone, I'm back with a new YouTube video. Today I'm going to get right into it. We are interviewing my dad. I think that he has some good advice to offer regardless of your age or your gender. So we're going to get right into it. I'm just going to ask some questions and we're going to have fun with it. First question is, what would you recommend for young men that are exiting school, like really young men who just got out of like college or high school? What would you give them as a general like piece of advice, whether it be like financially or in their career or learning things or in their relationships?
Well, that's a lot of stuff. First thing to remember, I think, would be, and this is male or female, is that school is over and your education is just beginning now. You shouldn't confuse the two things. You know, I didn't like school, but I love learning things, and that's a lifetime thing, and information has never been more readily available than it is right now. You just pull out that phone and that's only one way. You can still, information is everywhere. What I'm saying is that you should, I would think, an inquisitive mind would want to know things and stuff. And just because school stops doesn't mean that learning is a lifetime thing. As far as your finances and stuff, you should learn to budget everything. And first with your health, there's nothing more important than your health. Your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. You should budget a certain amount of time for all those things. And you should budget your self-sabotage, I think. You're going to self-sabotage. Everybody is.
What do you mean by budget it? Like budgeting your self-sabotage? What do you mean?
Right, you're going to do it. You're going to buy a foolish thing, or you're going to drink, or whatever you're going to do, You can have the guys over, or the gals, or whatever, and you can have a few beers, and there's nothing wrong with that. But why not budget it? Why not put 2 or 3 beers in the door of the fridge? And when those are gone, then you go to orange juice or water or whatever. You don't have to drink all the beer. I did, but it's not a good idea. That's what I'm saying.
So you're saying have like self-discipline?
Right, you can still have your fun, you can still enjoy yourself, you can still relax, but budget. You learn to budget as you go along, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So you budget the time, you budget for your health, you budget for your money, and even your self-sabotage. That would be my advice with it.
So what do you think young people in general, or I guess, I don't know if this question would be different for young men compared to young women, but what do you think that young people should prioritize as they are like very young and getting started in the world? Like, are there certain things that they should prioritize over other things? Like, should you prioritize your financial situation, or like what are the different things that you should be trying to develop as you're going out into the world?
Well, first, your time. Time management. Time is the one thing you can't get back. You can get back money. You can lose all your money and make it again. A lot of successful people have lost everything at least once. You can get back your money. You can get back material possessions. You can't get back your time. So learn how to budget your time accordingly. I think, my understanding is that video games are a huge thing. I mean, there was video games when I was a kid too. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to go so far as to spend, I don't know, an hour a day, this is where that's just your thing. You relax, you come home from work, and there's no problem with that if that's your deal. If it's 6 hours, you got home from work, and now it's 10:15, and I still got a shower and I haven't eaten, but you've been gaming. Now you haven't budgeted your time accordingly. And everything in moderation. I think time is of the essence, and money. Money piles up over time. So if the numbers are dependent on your circumstance, but 10%, 15%, every time you get a check, 25% if you can, put it aside or invest it in the markets or whatever you're going to do with it, but that money does not exist. That's for my future.
How do you go about, from your personal experience, deciding what's most important? Like, why does budgeting matter in the big picture?
Well, like I said, time, you can't get time back. Once it's spent, it's gone. And time is funny in that when you're young, you don't have a good concept of time. Like when you're 6 years old and they told you a month away from your birthday, you know, your birthday's coming up. Well, you better be acting right, or however that goes. That month seems to take forever. And then, you know, when you're 30, that month goes by like that. Time has a way of piling up just like money does, just like things do. Ideally, you want to take care of your old man now while you're young, or your old woman, because you can't make that. You can't afford the risks. You don't have the time left in life. And so if you budget accordingly as you go, things are working in your favor to take care of the old man. Gonzalo Lira had a video about it. I want to say it was called The Old Man. Don't hold me to that. But he talked about a door greeter in Walmart, and he felt so sorry for him because he didn't take care of the old man when he was young. And in your case, be the old woman. It's the same, you know. You have no concept of the long-term future when you're young. You just don't. That comes with time and experience. But if you look out for the earlier and more appropriately, you look after that when you are young, the better your chances will be of enjoying the blessing of your years, I guess is what I'm saying.
It reminds me of like delayed gratification, but on a bigger picture scale. So if you're keeping the future image of whatever it is in mind while you're making your current decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So the payoff ends up paying off way later. I think that's a good piece of advice. This is kind of something I want to talk about as well, because it was something that we were talking about a little bit earlier, and then also something I think is interesting on YouTube as a whole. So we see a lot of situations where now younger women are very immature. 80% of divorces are initiated by women, and 90% if they're college educated. As a man who has like experienced that statistic essentially, and seeing what you see now with younger women and what they tend to do, or that most divorces are caused by women, what do you think that men should go out into the world thinking? Because men, I assume, still want families and they still want to be married, but how would you recommend protecting yourself as a man if that's the majority of women being unhappy regardless of their situation and then typically leaving?
Well, use caution. And like I told you when you told me you're engaged, let that settle in. There's no hurry. If you're committed to one another, the state isn't going to make or break that. A piece of paper or a ring isn't going to. If you're committed to each other, that's between the two of you. You don't need the state authorization to do that. Or a ring, or a ceremony. I mean, you can have a ceremony with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
But I would strongly recommend letting that settle in, because that has destroyed more finances and families. I want to say it's Nepal has a thing now that they're trying where you go into marriage for 5 years, and at the end of that 5 years, it's contractual. Do we want to like a military hitch? Do you want to go another 5 years and both parties agree, then you go another 5 years? No, we're good. Then you separate ways, and there's no hateful animosity. It's a separate institution from the biblical aspect of marriage. The way I look at it, marriage is designed for the family structure, and it's almost ridiculous without that. If you're not going to have children, I don't see any reason to be married. And again, you can pledge your fidelity and your trust and your togetherness without a marriage. You do that amongst yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be incredibly cautious bringing the state into that relationship. That's my advice for anybody young, especially young men.
If you decide that you don't want to legally get married as a man, and let's say you're with a woman and she wants to get legally married, then how would you think that you would still protect yourself as a man? Because if you still get married, I know that you can sign prenups and whatnot, but I don't know a whole bunch about it. How would you go about still being cautious in that situation?
You got to talk it out and work it out. What is you notice it's her day. It's her big day. It's not his day. A wedding. Weddings are for women primarily.
Yeah.
So what is the hurry? I mean, if one is dead set on something and the other is not, again, if you're committed to each other, it shouldn't even be a thing. If the woman's going to make that a devising factor, well, then you're done. If you can't agree on something that arbitrary, you're not going to agree on the big things as you go along, like child rearing and decisions of school or medical care or something like that. And the signs are always there early. Is do we see them and do we act on them? I mean, there's a lot of people in what I call space filler relationships. They're not, yeah, she's cool, she's all right. You fill in, and that's so destructive, or can potentially be so. And next thing you know, now there's a baby involved. Now there's a child. Now you've got actual skin in the game with somebody that you're just killing time with. Get out of it. Get out of it as quick as you would a toxic relationship. Get out. Be done with it. It's not worth the payment that is required.
That's good.
Got all serious.
I have this question written down. It says, what's the main thing you'd recommend young men avoid, ?
Avoid?
Yeah, like, what are some really bad, like, destructive things that you would recommend young men not go down the path of if they had the foresight to not go down that path?
Pornography. There is no gain in that. I mean, at face value, it's not their fault, but it's sexual abuse victims, incest victims, and drug addicts, and they're getting paid to have sex, and you're not. What is the point? And then there's the underlying, a spiritual connection there. That's just there's nothing about it that's healthy. It's a waste of time, and it's not any good. And it puts an unrealistic view from and to both men and women. There's no benefit to it. Get out of it. That's debt, if at all possible. But some things are not realistic to put in that category, like a house or something like that. But vehicle debt, I personally don't think is worth the payoff. It's a depreciating liability. It's not an asset. Unless you're making your money delivering, it's not an asset. It's depreciating liability, so why be crippled by that? It's sitting in the driveway or parking lot most of the time. The borrower is slave to the lender. And Ben Franklin is credited with that. It comes out of, I think, Psalms. It's a biblical thing. He who pays the piper calls the tune. That's one of the oldest phrases around.
I've actually never heard that.
Have you not?
No.
It means, he who pays the piper is the one that calls the music that we all dance to. It's whoever's in charge of the finances dictates the terms.
Yeah.
They don't care. The bank doesn't care about you. They don't care if you lost your job. They don't care about your family. They want their money, and they want interest with that money. And it's crippling. It will set you back and set you back further. All money does is buy you your most valuable asset, which is time and options. Now you have options to maybe take a lesser paying job because you're not strapped with those payments. About the only thing really insurmountable to pay in full is a house, and even that can be done. I've done it. I built it myself, but that's...
Still, that's a way around it.
Yeah. So limit your debt, stay away from it if you can. Make it work for you if you can't, or you choose not to. That'd be another piece of advice to avoid. Toxic relationships for the obvious reasons. Toxic, and that can be anything. Maybe your buddy,
your mom,
your dad, whatever. If it's toxic, just, you can escape, you can dip out of that without a disastrous explosion at the end. You just don't return the calls and don't. If it's a drain on your life and a serious drain on your time, your resources, exit. Same thing with relationships with work. If your job is that horrific, you're looking for a job when you got that one. Life is too finite to spend years in things that just are so crushing. Have faith in yourself, at least a little bit. Don't have too much. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Can you go over some of your notes?
Emotions, I would advise you to eliminate. There's a time for emotion. Funerals, weddings. Your job is not a place for your emotion. The bank is not a place for your emotion. Your finances are not places for your emotion. And I'm serious. It's, we've got to get this house. We've got to get the financing. We're going to lose it. There's other houses get your emotion. The more bad decisions are made by putting your emotions in your finances than I don't even know what. It's get your emotions out of where they don't belong. Obstacles to overcome when you're young. Broken families, defeatist attitude, the general economy. I mean, there's a lot of things. Being young has always been difficult. Always. And that's no less so now. People forget. They forget how hard it was starting out. I haven't forgotten. I haven't. And I looked at it as one of my jobs was to prepare you to hopefully be a successful adult. That's a parent's job. Initially, it's to nurture and protect. And then the last thing I would say on my part is don't give up. Don't you dare give up. Because it's the easiest thing in the world to do. It doesn't require any effort, doesn't require any skill. Don't you freaking give up. And I mean that in the big picture. You know, there's a lot of young people that are eliminating themselves over stuff that you got time. You have time to overcome bad situations.
What do you mean? Like, what's an example?
Of what?
Like a bad situation that someone would be in and then they easily give up because they don't know what to do?
Maybe a divorce or a breakup of a relationship or a bad home life. You know, when you're still under your parents' roof and stuff like that. Things oftentimes seem like really big things when you're young, and they're not quite that big. Don't give up. Just don't. It's another old saying, time heals all wounds. And it maybe doesn't 100% heal them, but it's not worth self-deletion. Just ride it out. Like anything. Good times come, and then they go. Money will come, and then it'll go. You gotta play the curve, you know.
My last question is, if you could recommend any good starter tools, like if I wanted to start my toolkit and I needed to fix stuff around the house, is there like a specific tool that you think I should use first?
Cordless drill. Pay attention to what battery system you get, because if you end up getting more cordless tools, the platform you get, you know, you don't want to buy a DeWalt drill and then later get a Makita cordless saw. Now your batteries are incompatible. Batteries are expensive. Chargers are expensive. But if you had to pick one to get started, I'd say a cordless drill. Got 1,050 uses.
Nice. Well, I think that's all the questions that I had to ask.
I'm off
And
the
I
hook
think-
for the rest of my life.
I think we covered some really good stuff, so thanks for doing the video with me.
My pleasure.
All right, well, I guess that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And we'll see you next time.